Bank of America stock's going down because someone is shorting the market. Who is that someone? That billionaire, Warren Buffett. He keeps showing that there's signs of a struggling economy. Not only that, there's a monster de-dollarization meeting happening with BRICS in October. We also see signs that Nvidia is slowing down. Remember, our market is pretty much held up by the S&P and held up by just a few companies. If some of those companies start faltering, and you see people like Warren Buffett selling most of his holdings in the market, especially a big monster bank like Bank of America, what actually is really happening? Jim Rickards, financial genius, says we're just one snowflake from hitting the mountain to cause the avalanche. How serious is our dollar crisis? How serious is our debt crisis? Well, when banks are struggling, the stock market's struggling, gold's kind of holding us on. What actually is safe to invest in and put our money in? Today we're going to talk about that. We're struggling paycheck to paycheck, and then when we do build up some money, where do we put it? Let's dive in today. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe. Remember, please subscribe. We are going to be doing a giveaway at the end of the month. It's going to be a silver prepper bar from Genesis Gold. Please realize that the value of subscribing is hopefully you'll get great content each and every day, but it's free and you have a chance to win something usually worth hundreds of dollars or even thousands of dollars. We did a solar generator giveaway just a few months ago. So we always are giving away things that hopefully can benefit you as someone who wants to live sustainable and wants to live with a common sense approach to this crazy world we live in. Now let's talk about today's video. First of all, Bank of America. Bank of America has a warning, and the sad thing is something that they can't help. Bank of America is one of the biggest banks in America doing the most business. So why is Warren Buffett one of the most successful investors dumping at stock? Well, he's been doing this with a lot of his companies. What is it showing that a multi-billionaire is trying to set himself up with more cash and more safety nets? Is it because he believes that there is a market crash coming? Now, Jim Rickards comes out and states crashes that's kind of happened along the way, and we've kind of held up the market based on money printing from the government providing jobs and subsidies, and ultimately falsifying the jobs reports and things like that. He says we're one snowflake, one simple snowflake from a collapse of an avalanche taking hold of America's economy. Now, we have Warren Buffett who is dumping bank shares. We have financial brilliance telling us there is a market crash coming. So how safe is our money? How safe is our retirement? I mean, my goodness, most people have their money invested in the market. What about this? I love cash. We've talked about this, talk about it all the time. So I do believe you do need some cash. However, there's a meeting coming up with BRICS countries. I mean, actually, we've been meeting with China lately, trying to slow this meeting down, slow the fact of this volatility down. But ultimately, BRICS' whole agenda purpose for October is de-dollarization. They're trying to get most of the people that are involved in BRICS, which are majority of the world now, majority of countries in the world are involved in BRICS, and they're saying it is time to de-dollarize. Now, de-dollarization right before an election is a pretty serious thing. That's why I think U.S. has had meetings with China, even down to Jake Sullivan going over there 3 or 4 times just this last few weeks. What do you think they're trying to slow down? The fact of the market crashing. Did you know we just passed another $1 trillion in debt? So all this happening right at once, what do we need to do? What can we do to survive this? How do we come through it, especially when most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck? There's another report that came out that says housing is skyrocketing. It's worth more than ever. And on the front side, you're like, oh wow, that's a good thing. I own a house, so my assets are going up. 2 reasons I don't agree with this. I don't like when my house value goes up. Because guess what? That means more assessed taxes, a property tax. So when your house value goes up, you think it's good. It's only good if you're selling. Well, if you're selling, that means you got to buy another house in this explosive housing market that costs too much to buy in. So the housing market going up, with the fact the interest rates are not going down, with the fact that people can't borrow money, with the fact that our jobs are not as strong, our economy is not as strong, is actually not good. Because what it does is the housing value goes up, you're assessed for more taxes, and therefore you have to pay more into the government. Plus, you can't sell it because that means you have to turn around and buy another house. I know two families that I'm very close to. Actually, they're internal families tied to my family. And they can't build homes right now because the housing market, they can't afford to build. At the same time, they sold their house, made good money, put the money up, but now the market costs even more to invest in. So now where do you put your money if you can't buy a house right now? Okay, so let's talk about it. Here's what I think your main goals of doing what you need to do right now. What are you supposed to do with your cash? What are you supposed to do with your money? How are you supposed to save? All right, first, you have to get out of debt. Now, people say all the time, well, if the market's crashing, who cares? Debt doesn't mean anything anymore. Bull. It says in the Bible, and again, this is common sense, the borrower is slave to the lender. You have to start getting out of debt. The only way that you're ever not going to live paycheck to paycheck, the only way that you're ever going to have some funds is you got to get out of debt. So first and foremost, you have to get on a balanced budget and you have to get out of debt. Now this is something I talk about all the time because I believe it is so important. If I cannot afford it, I don't buy it. You know, when we talk about the land or we talk about the little additions that we do on the house, the reason we do a lot of projects and we do them over so many years in time is because we want to do them with cash. You know where I put my money? It's in things that bring value to myself. So we just talked about getting out of debt so you have more money to utilize. You ever wondered how in the world am I going to pay this credit card off? I'm only paying minimums and I can't afford the interest rates. Well, that's why we, of course, need to stay on a budget and understand what wants and needs are, for sure. But what if you're already upside down and you have debts that you cannot afford? Well, that's where my friends at American Financing could come in and help. I don't want you to borrow money, but if you can refinance or learn how to restructure your home loan, then you can get some help. Think of how much money you would save if all of a sudden you could get that note down from 18%, 20%, 25%, to 5, 6, 7%, maybe even lower. So not only are you freeing up a lot of money, you're able to utilize that towards, of course, preparedness, but principal payments and getting back on the right track. American Financing could be the answer that you need. There's no obligations. Check with my link below. And once you go there, you may realize you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know one thing is true. When we have debts that we can't afford or things that we feel like we can't purchase, that's stress, that's anxiety. We feel like we can't sleep. But when we know we can control it and we can see light at the end of the tunnel, then we know we're not as stressed and it's better for us and our families. I want you to get on a right budget, and it may take you restructuring your debt. Check out our friends at American Financing now. Use the link below. It's got the promo code, the max. It could help you save a ton of money. Now, do I believe that you should put up cash? Yes, I believe you should have 3 to 6 months of your expenses in cash somewhere in an inconspicuous place. Could be in your home, could be in a cache, could be in a dirty man safe, could be in whatever you want to put it in, but ultimately you need 3 to 6 months worth of cash. Now, Colby, you just said that there's a de-dollarization push in October. It is. Eventually, BRICS, CBDC, a reset will happen. We know that. But until it does, cash is still what needs to be utilized. Cash means you are living in a parallel society. I bought 2 things with cash yesterday. You know why I'm not going to tell you what it is? Because that's the purpose of buying with cash. No one knows what that transaction was. It was between me and another person. You probably pretty much know what it is because it deals with some freedoms I have, and it comes in, it's made up of a lot of steel. Let's say it like that. Now, the reason I like cash is because if I need to purchase something, that deal is between me and that other individual. Do I use cash for everything? I don't. I try to keep as much cash. So what do I do with the money in the bank? Well, first of all, I believe you need to keep your money in banks to an extent. They need to be local banks, local credit unions. If they are a bank that is, owned by its people or public, then you will know how strong that bank is or how weak that bank is. If I see Warren Buffett dumping Bank of America stocks, not that Bank of America is going belly up, but what I want to see is why is this multi-billionaire dumping this stock and becoming more involved just in cash and not investing in this company? So I want to pull out of bigger banks. I don't want to be invested in monster banks, because ultimately they're the ones that either set policy to see a failing economy, or they're the ones that's going to feel the brunt, and somehow the government's going to get tied into, and governments will invest into. Look at 08, 09. The government invested in some of these bigger banks. What that meant is it gave them footholds in these banks. So therefore, I don't want to be invested in the same bank that the government has so much ties to. Do you honestly believe that's beneficial to you if you're trying to keep your money your money? So therefore, if I'm investing in banks, which I do have money in banks, I look at local banks. I look at local banks that have some strength, that are more independent than just worried about what they believe in the Federal Reserve. So therefore, I want local banks, local credit unions, and also banks that have value to my community. So if I'm putting money in cash 3 to 6 months, if I'm building up any money or using any bank, I'm going to make sure I'm using a local bank. Now, here's the next thing. You have to look at, where does value come? Well, we just heard that the housing values are going up. Well, this may be the time to say, you know what, I need to do some things and use money to put in assets, in real estate, in real tangible goods. So therefore, real estate may be where you want to put your money. If you can buy an acre, think how much food you can grow on an acre. If you can buy a half acre, think what you can do with that half acre and how you can maybe make more money and grow an investment versus just sitting on it. I don't know if you buy cattle or buy pine or buy woods or buy, hunting land, you need to look at ways that you can invest in land. Not only that, you need to look at ways that you can add to your house. Like right now, we have this building project going on. If you can see it, it's over here. We're closing in a part of the house. Now, we've been saving up for that, and actually, to be honest with you, it's a porch, so we had a lot of the investment already done because the house was already built. All we're doing is closing up the sides. Why? Because we want value back in adding more pantry room in our kitchen, so then we can stockpile more food, to then therefore we can move our table out and move our dishes out and put them in this new room. It allowed me to open up space to put more tangible goods. What is those tangible goods? Food. Food has went up over 19 to 30% in the last 3 years. You don't have one investment in the stock market. You don't have one investment in your cash. You don't have one investment with anything else that's went up more than 19 to 30%, other than maybe your housing and food. There's been things that go up, but it's been in cost, not an investment. So food is a huge investment. What about buying a pressure canner? What about buying some animals to then turn around and learn how to process your own? What about buying a freezer to then put more food in? What about learning how to do those skills to put up food, not just buying it? That is what's valuable. So we've talked about getting out of debt. We've talked about making sure that you're investing in good, strong banks, local banks, and if they're not willing to give you their disclaimers and their disclosures and tell you how strong or weak their bank is, then don't invest in their bank. Most of them will tell you or give you a financial outlook of their bank easily. Also, putting up 3 to 6 months worth of cash in your home or in an inconspicuous place that's safe from not getting taken, of course. Not only that, if we know de-dollarization is coming, what can we invest in? Well, we know cash is in the bank, and we know that would be reset if something happened. We know cash is at our home, so if we had to turn that in, we may have to turn that in. But right now, it's a parallel society, so we're going to use it in food. It doesn't matter what happens to the dollar. Food is always going to be worth more. I think of times in the Bible. I always go back to the Bible and thinking of prepping and thinking about, God does take care of us, and we believe that. What happened with Joseph? Joseph saw that there was going to be a famine in Egypt and for the world, basically. What did he do? He stockpiled food because he knew the value of what currency was during that time meant nothing. Without food, he lost power, Egypt lost power, and the fact that they had nothing to live for. What did they stockpile? They stockpile food. So please, stockpile grains, stockpile things that are pantry shelf stable. So I think of things like honey. I think of things like liquor, again, for home remedies, because it never goes bad. I think of rice and beans and making sure you're putting them in Mylar bags or in food-grade buckets. I think of making sure you're putting that kind of food in dark areas that are not susceptible to a lot of heat, to a lot of cold, but also not a lot of light. I want to make sure that food stays very stable. Now this weekend I'm going to be doing a video of what to stockpile and what not to stockpile, as in food. We're going to talk about 5 to 10 foods. But today, what I'm trying to get you to understand is when you think you're buying rice and beans and oatmeal and grits and all that's a waste of money, it's not. It's probably one of the most valuable things that you can purchase. Now, for most people that have a lot of money, they may say, you're stupid. Who would do that? I have $1 million in the bank. Or I have $200,000 in the bank. If you can't access your money, you have nothing. You have nothing. Let's go back to the Bible again like we talked about. People had tons of livestock. They had tons of land. They had tons of grain. But when the crop failed and they didn't have it up in their pantry like Egypt had, where did they go? They went to Joseph in Egypt to get stuff and food because that is all they had. What they had to do, they had to barter. They had to get the things to Egypt, and they had to give things to Egypt and Joseph to ultimately be able to eat. So you talk about bread lines. Money is not the most valuable thing you can put up. It's assets that bring value to yourself. So I think about food. Now, what's the last few things that you can invest in? Things that bring value back to food. So let's think outside the box. We talked about a canner. What about garden tools? What about making sure that you can learn how to grow seeds? What if it's all of a sudden, well, I have the land and I don't really have a lot of land, but I can at least buy a tiller and make sure that I can till up the ground and make rows to be able to grow food. Do you realize how valuable that is? Now, I tell you all the time, invest in gold and silver. I believe it's the end-all be-all because it is a world currency. You know, BRICS currency trying to destroy the dollar, most of those currencies are still buying a lot of gold and silver, especially gold. So I think it's a good investment. But for people who can't pay $2,000 or $3,000 for a piece of gold, you can pay $2 or $3 for a bag of rice. You can build up to $100 or $200 to buy a tiller. You can spend $50 and buy a new rake. You can go and buy Survival Seeds. I mean, they have a whole seed vault. I mean, in my description, you can go to Survival Seeds. They have a whole seed vault for $100 and you get 100 different seeds. Millions, hundreds of thousands of seeds to grow food. Think about how valuable that $100 pack of seeds would be if all of a sudden there was a crisis like the trigger warning of a simple snowflake hitting an avalanche. So when we hear Bank of America warning of tough times, we hear NVIDIA kind of peaking out, meaning their stocks may go down, and that's what the market is waiting on. That's why it's flat right now, is because they're worried about the NVIDIA earnings, because our market is held up by our government and about 7 companies. Well, Meta's going through some transformation issues. NVIDIA is peaking out. Tesla is what it is. So some of those companies are starting to struggle. And then you have billionaires like Warren Buffett saying, I don't know if I want to keep investing in this market, so I'm going to start selling and getting in a cash situation where he has more cash and liquid money versus it into the market and exposed. So now I challenge you. You know how you do that on the scale of not being a billionaire, because most of us are not, for sure. 99% of us are not. You say, I'm going to take the same mindset. I'm going to try to save some cash, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Well, Colby, I can't do that. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can maybe just buy $10 extra. That's $10 to the good, and that's $10 that you can start saving. Also remember, get on a budget. You're going to realize how much you spend. If you're going to Burger King and McDonald's every day, or you're shopping at Walmart without a shopping list, or you're trying to live through eating town food, you're going broke and you're becoming unhealthy. If you're still living off credit cards instead of cutting them up, you are not going to get on a balanced budget and start saving money. So you have to do those things. And then you have to find ways, okay, local banks, making sure I'm putting some cash up, making sure I'm buying some food, and then I'm making sure that I can figure out how to grow the food with certain assets. So seeds, garden tools, garden implements, learning how to preserve the food like Mylar bags, learn how to preserve the food like food grade buckets to be able to put up for safekeeping, learn how to preserve the foods with dehydrators, freeze dryers, and of course canning goods. Now that was a lot thrown at you. I have tons of videos on those things. But without having a way to put your food up, without having a way to buy the food, without having a way to grow the food, then you're going to be in the same bread lines that most people will probably end up in. You're going to be like the people running to Joseph to give them food to make it. Didn't matter how much money they had. If they didn't have things that they could eat and things that could keep them safe, there was no value. So let's think about that. Now we've just talked about a whole lot of stuff to invest in and put your money in. You have to defend it too. Now I'm going to leave that one up to your imagination, because if I talk about it too much, I probably won't get this video out. I can't have all these things and not defend it. So you need to buy the things to defend your home. That's the things that I'm investing in. That's the things that I want to make sure that I'm not worried about what my stock's doing today. Because to be honest with you, I'm not going to have a lot of money in the stock. I'm going to have a lot of money in my food, in my food bank, in my seeds. I'm going to make sure that I'm putting things like that up, because when the market crashes and you can't get your funds, when the bank shuts the door and you can't get your funds, when the fact of the grid gets hit and you can't get to your crypto, I can still eat, I can still have the land to grow the food, and I still have the seeds to actually make the food happen. I still have some cash that I can utilize when I need it. I still have some gold and silver that I can barter with. I still have some other things that I can barter with, because I'm building up those skills, building up those stockpiled good things that are assets to me. But then I can also defend everything I have, because I've got that too. Guys, pay attention to this market. Don't believe the government and these 7 companies are going to save this economy when we're going trillions of dollars in debt. Your housing value is going up, so your property tax is going up. So that means you're not going to be able to afford another home if something happens to the one you've got. So let's get it paid down. Let's get out of debt, and let's get on better footing. Don't worry about the American dream of thinking about putting your money in the stock market. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying make sure you're being wise and spreading yourself out to make sure your money is safe. And if the market fails, it won't stress you too much. If the bank fails, it won't stress you too much. If the fact is you lose your cash because cash is gone and it de-dollarizes, it won't affect you too much, because you have other things and other means to keep going. Do this now with your cash, do this now with your money, and make sure that you are getting out of debt. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Check out my sponsor today, because remember, if you're not out of debt, it's going to be hard to do any of this. If you're not able to put some money up, it's going to be hard to do this. This company may help you today. Guys, thank you for watching. God bless.